Today I'm going to make a rocket stove hot water heater using Cobb and copper pipe. I've gotten several requests in the comments over the past couple months to make another rocket stove out of mud or cob or the Georgia clay, which is the native soil here in Georgia. The reason I say another one is because I did make one a couple of years ago, but I've learned a lot since then, so I wanted to make another one. But I'm going to add a twist to that, a twist of copper that is, to turn this into a rocket stove hot water heater. This is a 10-foot piece of 1/2-inch copper I got from the local Home Depot, and I'm going to use this to create a coil that's going to go inside the stove. Now this is soft copper and it's bending nice and easily, but as I need to tighten this up a little bit to make the coil, but I need to be really careful that I do not kink the pipe. I've seen someone do this before with 1/2-inch, which is probably harder to bend. To prevent kinking, they actually filled it with sand. I'm going to try and bend this without doing that, but if it looks like it's going to start kinking up, I'm going to stop and add the sand. I'm going to start by clearing a spot here at the end of rocket stove row. I had sort of planned on trying to repair my original concrete rocket stove build with some straps, but I need the space, so it's going to have to go. Adding a little base here with some scrap concrete siding that I've got just to cover the sand and just to start off with a level surface. So I'm going to build the air channel and the firebox using some pavers and some fire brick, and then my typical salvaged piece of grill grate to elevate the fuel. Sort of similar to what you see on this stove next door. I salvaged a fire brick from another project, the little greenhouse furnace. I'm actually going to put this one in the back though. One of the rocket stove principles is that you want the area of airflow in the firebox to be the same as the area of airflow in the chimney. Just so as you have the heat going up, it's going to create a pressure zone and then subsequently pull more air in the front. We're using a 4-inch PVC pipe for our form for the chimney, so we want about a 4-inch area here going in. Alright, there's the layout. Let's pull this apart. I'm going to cut down the grate and then we'll assemble the firebox. So I spared you the cutting of the grate, but I just cut it in half and really just scored it halfway and then snapped it in half by stomping on it. So this video was actually inspired by another video that I saw here on YouTube, as well as a comment coming from Off-Grid Secrets, who made a really cool mud natural draft stove that he used to heat water for his outdoor shower. Put a link to it in the description below. So before I start making any cob, I want to bend the copper coil into the shape that I need. I'm going to start out by actually straightening it out a little bit, because I'll need an extension that reaches out through the stove that I can attach to my inlet hose. Of course, there will also be the same feature at the top where the outlet, the heated water, is going to be coming out. A little flattening of this round in terms of the pipe getting thinner is going to be okay, but what I don't want to do is any kind of kinking. If you do kink it up a little bit, started to have one come in right here, just ease it back out and then support beyond the kink as you start to get that bend going again. Otherwise it's liable to just kink right back up again. I'm trying to keep this as round as possible. It's getting a little wonky, but I think it'll be okay. It's a little more unwieldy as I'm getting further into the coil, and I am trying to keep it pretty tight this way also. Alright, let's straighten this out. And there's our coil with our inlet and our outlet. See, that bent up pretty well. I'm pleased with that. All right, now that we've got this built, let's assemble the firebox, mix up some cob, and we can start building this stove. I actually had some cob that had dried out, and I wanted to see if I could soak it a little bit and then reconstitute it. So that's what I've got in the bucket here. There's also some that's still in the shower curtain liner. So we're gonna see if we can break that up, integrate it with some of the new cob. This cob had the grass in it, and this I made with some sawdust in it. So we're just gonna mix those two together. Get the critters out of here. We got slugs, beetles. So I'm actually gonna add some unmixed ingredients to this, and we'll mix it up. Now I'm going to introduce the binder element. Alright, this feels pretty uniform. I'll deal with the stringy binder elements as I go. But maybe a little bit wet, but I think it'll be okay. Two little tweaks I want to make here before I start building the firebox. One, I want to be able to use my welded ashtray here underneath. So let's widen that out just a little bit to make that happen. A little bit of wiggle room there. Obviously I made this for another stove, but I do want to be able to move it around and take advantage of this capturing ash and actually protecting the concrete siding here from the heat. It's really not made for heat. So that's good. The other thing I want to do is I don't want the cob sitting right down on this layer, just because it's going to get wet, moisture will bounce off of that, and I don't want that to be a weak spot. So I'm actually going to add another row of vertical pavers around the outside. This won't be perfect, and it's actually an optional step, but it'll add that layer of durability to the stove. Alright, now I'm going to add cob back here to these two areas. And there's actually a space here between the back brick and the inner brick of the firebox here. So I'm going to just put a little cob in there too, just so this is solid. Now let's finish out the firebox. I want to make sure that my fire brick is sitting right down on that grate evenly. So I've got that nice and thin right along here, so any cob that needs to be squeezed out in order to make that happen can do it. Actually, no, I'm not thrilled with that reveal. I want this to be even with the front here, so I'm going to adjust this a little bit back here. Pull in some of that out. So one advantage of working with Cobb versus concrete is that you can adjust. To finish out the front of the stove here, I'm going to put in 2 more half bricks just to make this a little more decorative and stable. But I'm actually going to mortar them in with some Cobb. Trains here. For the lintel here, I'm going to have it overlap the outside there just a little bit, just for the purpose of a little less rain running down the front of this. Although I'm probably going to seal this. I'm going to need to seal this, because otherwise it will wear away with the rain. Make sure this is even. Gotta be even. Alright, so I'm going to build up the level of the Cobb around the firebox here until I have enough there to set the coil in. I need to consider where my input and output hoses are going to connect as well. And I'm actually doing that on the corners of the stove. As I do this, I want to make sure I'm not pushing the firebox in. Now I'm going to seat the coil. As an optional step for the area immediately around the coil, I'm going to mix up a special batch of Cobb with clay, sand, and perlite. It'll add some extra insulation. In this part of the stove, I want to keep as much heat as possible concentrated on the coil itself to heat the water. I don't want any going into the thermal mass of the stove. I'm going to mix the sand and clay together first, get the consistency where I want it, and then mix in the perlite. I know to some of you this looks like styrofoam, but it's actually a mineral. It doesn't melt. I want this really heavy on the perlite. If I could go 100% perlite in there, I would, but something has to hold it together. Alright, that's ready. I'm going to pack the insulation mixture around the coil, but I'm not going to force it in between the openings. As much as it can stay outside the coil, the better. It's a little brittle because of all the perlite in there, So I'm actually going to come behind it with some Cobb as I go up. Some regular Cobb, that is. Whenever I've got a long stringy piece of the binder like this, either I'll just tuck it in to the next part of the mold, push it in where it is, or just slide it out. I'm going to use the last of my insulated material here to put a little bit of a cap on the top of the coil. I actually had to make a little bit more because that first batch wasn't quite enough to spread this around. And this is still going to absorb some of that heat. There's no way around that. Aside from going with a mineral wool or something like that, but this should help a little bit. Alright, now that the coil section is built, I'm going to put the pipe on as a form and then continue building up. I'm using the last little bits of the Cobb that don't have as much of the binder in it, kind of cover up some of these areas that are a little more scrappy. I will come back and do a skim coat on this most likely, but I know you all will not be happy if I don't light this. So, but to do that I have to get water in that copper line or it'll melt. So, and I'm running out of daylight. So I'm just gonna do a little stop short of the finish coat on this so I can get the thing lit. One nice thing about forming this by hand is that I don't have to worry about getting it out of a form. This pipe is loose enough that it'll slide right out. And I've got a few more inches of height over the concrete stove, which should give me a little bit more draft on this. Alright, let's hook up the water line. I'm going to do a more involved video about making the outdoor shower that goes with this stove. But in the meantime, for testing purposes, I'm just going to throw something together. 5-gallon bucket, low line, high line. Cold water is going to come out of here, hot water is going to come into here. Alright, all the fittings are on. Cold water line will come out of the bottom here, go around and into the bottom of the coil, come up the coil, out this side, and then up into the hot side of the bucket. Of course, we need to fill this up to here so we can get our thermal siphon going, get all the air out of that line. Alright, so all I need to do now is fill it up with water, and then I can fire it up. It's getting a little dark, but I'm committed to finishing this video. Got the lights out. Some beautiful pink skies in the background there. Alright, my hose fittings are leaking, but I think I'm going to still have enough capacity for a test, and that's why we're here. So let's fire this thing up, and we'll see if we can get some hot water. I didn't have enough time for the caulk to dry. Alright, let's light it up. Get the draft going first, like my grandfather taught me. I'm gonna boil the water out of this thing. Alright, got the fires going in the back there. I can hear a rocket sound. That just makes me happy. Flames are reaching the top. It's got a nice boost going there. I have to raise the heat shield up a little bit when I get the chance. Right now it needs more firewood. I'm gonna see if this hose has got any heat coming up it here. No heat yet. Alright, gotta keep this fire going. Got so busy filming, the fire went out. Lots of nice hot coals though, it'll go again. This stuff is actually a little green, but it will burn just fine once it gets going. Dropping the small stuff in from the top. Oh, check this out. You can see that, but there's steam coming off the water. It's a nice flame out of the top. Interesting, I can definitely feel the thermal layers in the water as I put my hand down deeper. So the top 3 inches of the water are hot, and the bottom is still cool. Ooh, nice and hot, warm. No, it's not real. It's just not a fire here. Nothing to see. Move along. And drop a leaf in here so you can see the current. There's steam coming off it. Whew. That's hot. It's hotter than a hot shower hot, that's for sure. Oh yeah. So, even though Max was a bit of a letdown, not melting cans, got a plan B coming on that. But I am stoked about this. Stay tuned because part B is gonna be a outdoor shower attachment that goes along with this hot water heater. I'm Tom Mills from GreenShortz, and our mission, as always, is to help you see green so you can be green, and save a little green by doing it yourself. Thanks so much for watching. Please like and share, and subscribe for a new GreenShortz DIY video, well, whenever I get around to posting one.